Hey there guys, it is time for us to go back to the world of visual novels because Clannad, one of the most popular visual novels of all time, got a spin-off, and that spin-off just came out for the Nintendo Switch. How we're doing this is going to be a little different. I have a pretty lengthy spoiler discussion because, to be honest, I have a lot of thoughts about the game's story that I can't really put in a review. I've received a lot of different feedback from you guys on how I should do this, from having the spoiler content in the story section to putting it at the very end of the video. But to make sure that any of you watching this video that don't want spoilers don't have to worry about it, I'm gonna make a separate video on Friday for the spoiler discussion. On a positive note, that means you're getting this review on a Wednesday instead of the initial plan to release it on Friday. A continuation of Tomoyo's alternate route from the original Clannad novel, here is my review of Tomoyo After It's a Wonderful Life CS edition for the Nintendo Switch. The first thing you need to know about the story is that this is a continuation of Tomoyo's route from Clannad. If you haven't played or experienced that route yet, I highly suggest you do so before starting this game. The story takes place after the ending where Tomoyo and Tomoya are basically just going through life together. The story starts out just showing what they do in their normal lives, with Tomoyo coming over to visit him and them doing just boyfriend and girlfriend things, often interrupted by Tomoyo's brother. The story not really kicking off until the first of the two arcs starts as they take in a young girl named Tomo who was given away by her mother. Tomoyo and the protag then start bonding with Tomo and want to find out why she was given up, going on a little adventure trying to dig up as much information as they can so they can give Tomo a good life. And I really can't dive into any more specifics with the story without going into spoilers. Overall, this first arc feels like it's a mix of themes from Clannad's After Story arc and the Fruit of Grisaya's Yumiko arc. It's written pretty well and offers a lot of really good character development for both Tomo and Tomoyo. With as good as this arc was written, it doesn't really have that really sad Clannad feel to it. Not until you get to the second arc, and when you get there, it feels like the game was winding up a punch for the last several hours and throws it all at you in one moment. It's also this hitting you in the feels part that makes the second arc so good, with the personalities and what characters are willing to do to keep going. Now, I and a lot of other fans talk the story up, but there are some things that I didn't like about it. The first thing that felt off to me was the fact that personality-wise, Tomoyo and Tomoya feel a bit different than they were in Clannad. We're not talking about a total flip of personality where an introvert becomes a super bubbly extrovert, but enough to make me go back to Clannad thinking, were they really like this? And the other thing is how they follow up with characters in some of the endings. To put it simply, I was a lot happier when I got one of the bad endings than when I got the true ending. But enough about that. When it comes to gameplay, this is a visual novel with dialogue choices. Now, with the Switch version being CS Edition, which originally released on PS2 and is released on many consoles since, includes the base game of Tomoyo After as well as an unlockable strategy RPG that one of the characters makes in the game. It also means that all of the H scenes from the original game are not here anymore. And to be honest, I'm not really that sad about it. There are many visual novels that set up an atmosphere where you kind of expect H scenes and sex to happen, and Clannad is not one of those games. I was a bit shocked when I first found out that Tomoyo After even had H scenes in the first place. With the overall themes and tone of Clannad, it really just kind of feels out of place. Now, with it like this, they obviously had to write themselves away from the sex scenes to make it work. And only one of the scenes feels really artificial, where the dialogue just kind of screams, oh yeah, there was a sex scene here, but now there isn't. As far as features go, it's pretty feature for feature with the Switch versions of both Clannad and the Grisaya trilogy. You've got lots of touchscreen gestures for handheld mode, auto and skip options for text, and really good feature compatibility for replays when you're going for different endings, with the analog sticks being able to skip not only text, but go to the next dialogue choice. And of course, outside of the VN, you've also got the strategy RPG that you can unlock on a second playthrough if you do dialogue choices just right. Admittedly, the dungeon RPG is pretty basic, having you fight simple enemies going through endless floors. It's not a really in-depth RPG, but it isn't bad as a time waster. Now when we get to the overall pictures with content and length, we've got a few ending routes, but Tomoyo After is pretty linear overall. A single run through the game should take you around 10 hours or so, regardless of what ending you decide to go for. While this isn't bad for the asking price of $35, it being that much kind of makes me go down the route of this probably should have just been built into the Switch version of Clannad that came out last year. Now let's get into presentation. Visually, the game looks great. There are some reused backgrounds from Clannad, but everything is crisp and clean both in docked and handheld modes. I had no performance problems either, so let's go right into battery life. On the original model, Tomoyo After has a battery range of 4 hours and 15 minutes up to 6 hours and 4 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 4 hours and 22 minutes up to 6 hours and 54 minutes. And on the Redboxer V2 2019 model, it has a range of 5 hours and 45 minutes up to 8 hours and 11 minutes. In conclusion, handheld fans can finally play through Clannad's what if scenario for Tomoyo's route. Now on the downside, this probably should have just been built into the Switch version of Clannad from last year, and it does have one scene that isn't great at covering up the fact that there is also an H version of this. But regardless of those things, it is a great and emotionally powerful VN that any fan of Clannad and Tomoyo as a character will enjoy. Reviews to go, rates Tomoyo After for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and look forward to our spoiler discussion of Tomoyo After's story on Friday.